Number 4, Spider-Man Miles Morales. I love the 2018 Spider-Man game released by Insomniac Games. I feel like it's my favorite superhero game because it just perfected everything that was started by the likes of the Batman Arkham games and even previous Spider-Man games as well, like Spider-Man 2 on the PS2. Like that sort of started with the web swinging, all that stuff, and I think Insomniac just perfected it with this game. I feel like it took the best aspects of everything we love about Spider-Man and just mixed them together so well to give us this epic story and sort of create this new sort of alternate reality for Spider-Man, because obviously it's not like set within any sort of like timeline in the comics or anything. It's its own thing and it takes its own spin with all the characters and stuff, and I just thought it was really well done. And Miles Morales, it does more of the same. It has, I think it definitely improved on a lot of aspects, especially the combat. It feels a lot more intuitive now. Like, I'm not saying 2018 was bad. I mean, of course it was fantastic, but they just, I don't know, something about it feels right. I think especially with the PS5's power, it was able to deliver a better, like, smooth performance. Like, of course you can play the ray tracing mode, but you wouldn't get the 60 frames per second, where it feels just really nice to hit stuff and to use your webs to send people flying and all that stuff. It's just a lot of fun. And also they did a really good job with the stealth section. I mean, Spidey, he's known to do some stealth stuff, and again, this stuff is pulled off to just maximum effect because you get to perch on walls, or, well, more like the top of buildings and stuff, or go on walls, and then you get to just rope the enemies up. It's just a lot of fun. And I think the introduction of Miles' Venom powers just feels really dynamic and really fun to use, especially when you get to punch enemies and stun them. It's just, oh, the combat is just so satisfying. It never gets old. And of course, the game looks fantastic on the PS5 and almost no loading times, which is, that's insane. I never thought I'd see the day where, like, the load times would be non-existent again. Like, you can go all the way back to things like Nintendo or Super Nintendo, and where games, like, loaded almost instantly, and then we got into an age where loading times became a thing, and like, they can be okay, I guess, but then there are other times where it just gets so bad, it's just like, oh, come on, I just want to get in the game, and it just takes you out of the experience. But it's nice where we can get to a point now where loading times almost become non-existent again, you know? It's just, the game is optimized well, it just feels great to play. The story is decent. I think it's a decent story that really focuses on Miles and his time as Spider-Man and all that stuff. I don't think it was as, like, memorable as the 2018 one. It is a short game, which I think is nice, but at the same time, too, it doesn't, I forget the name of the main villain in it, she's a close friend of Miles, and they always had sort of a rivalry going on. I don't think it was explored as well, so by the end, you kind of don't feel like the reason, you kind of don't feel bad that, like, they have to be on different sides or all that stuff. I'm not saying that I didn't feel bad at all, because, I get why why they had to do things the way they did, and they couldn't just come together to form a compromise and all that stuff. They had to stay on these opposing sides, but something about it wasn't as impactful as in, the 2018 game with Peter and Doc Ock. I think because they were able to spend more time together, and you could kind of see how these two, they had this really strong friendship, and they both had these ideals to making the world a better place. But then when Doc Ock went south and all that stuff, it's like Peter realized that, it's like, oh man, you know what, he was my friend, but you know what, I have this responsibility, and I have to bring about peace, and I have to stop him from doing this. And it's just, something about it just felt really tragic. And I'm not saying this wasn't tragic at all, too, because you can kind of see the friendship these two had, but something about it didn't stick with me as much as the other game. I don't know. But again, I guess when the game was a lot shorter, because you had to focus on all these other characters, all these side characters and all that stuff. I think what I liked, too, was the inclusion of Miles' uncle, and the dynamic those two had, because, he plays the bad guy. It's the Prowler, I believe, right, is his name? I could be getting that wrong. I mean, oh no, I don't know my Spider-Mans that well, but Yeah, so that I felt was a really interesting dynamic because they're family, and even though, like, you know, the Prowler is the way he is, he still cares deeply for Miles, and he doesn't want any harm to come to him. Maybe that's because part of it is because I'm an uncle too, and I don't want I always want to be there for my niece, and I want to protect her from, you know, the bad stuff that's going on, and I want to make sure she's making the right choices. I mean, even though it's like I guess the choices are right, but you're putting yourself in danger because of it. I just don't want to see anything bad happen to her. So maybe I'm just getting sentimental with that whole storyline and all that stuff. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. There was, of course, one part that did spark a bit of controversy. I'm not going to go into it. I think most of you know what it is, and I'm not here to talk about any sort of controversy like that. And I'm not sure if it should have been included or not, guys. I mean, it's only in there for like a second or two, but it's kind of like, I don't know. So we're not going to touch on it because, again, I don't want to go into any sort of controversial stuff because I'm just here to share my thoughts on games. I'm not here to discuss like the politics or anything like that, you know. But overall, Miles Morales, I just really enjoyed it. I don't know if it was as good as the first Spider-Man game, and maybe it wasn't trying to be because it's more of a side story. But when they do actually do a proper follow-up, it does have to be bigger. It does have to be grander. And I think probably the best way to do that was to be able to control both Spider-Men, you know, and how their powers and the way they interact with the world will affect one another going forward. I think that would be a really interesting dynamic. And of course, it looks like we'll hopefully see Venom as well, because that'll be a lot of fun being able to fight him as well. And of course, Insomniac, they come up with really unique and creative ways to just use these classic villains. So hopefully we'll get to see a new spin on Venom as well. So yes, but I mean, even if you don't like Spider-Man, it's really worth checking out because I just love going to New York. I just love swinging around, getting to hang out with all these awesome characters. It's just a fun time. I like it. Number 3, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. Toys for Bob did such an excellent job with this game. I was not expecting a proper Crash Bandicoot 4. I thought Wrath of Cortex was the Crash Bandicoot 4, but I think they kind of want to distance themselves from those previous games. It's like, you know, they have their fans and all that stuff, but I don't know, they were mixed and they were kind of a mess. And then when the Insane Trilogy came out and that was a big hit, it's like, yeah, we kind of need to go back to Crash's roots, but expand on that old school gameplay. And Toys for Bob, they nailed it so hard. They did such a really good job of it. I mean, from a visual standpoint, the artwork, I love it. The music is great. And of course, the story is a lot of fun. I mean, it's what you expect from a Crash Bandicoot game. There's time travel, alternate realities. It's crazy. That's the kind of stuff you expect. Like, you get to go to all these awesome locales and stuff like that. I would have liked to have seen a bit more done with the alternate universe stuff. Like, maybe alternate universe versions of Crash and Coco would show up or something. I thought it would be really funny, but for what we got, it was still a lot of fun, the story. And of course, the masks, they were a lot of fun too. Just all these really distinct personalities. But then, of course, their use in the gameplay was just really creative and really imaginative. Of course, the gameplay is where it shines, as it should with any game. And I feel like they perfected Crash Bandicoot at this point. Toys for Bob, they really did a good job at taking this old school gameplay and bringing it into a modern era. Like the controls, it feels just great to control Crash and Coco and any other new characters that make their appearance. And they include now a little shadow beneath them, so the platforming's a lot better too. It feels a lot more precise. And I like the addition of the new characters because, like, it doesn't feel out of place because they still utilize the core mechanics that we come to expect from Crash Bandicoot with breaking blocks, platforming, and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun playing as them, but they feel underutilized at moments because, like, there'll be some levels where you're playing through it and then you have to stop and then it cuts back to, like, Crash or Coco, and you have to replay a certain portion of an earlier level you played. I don't know, I felt like maybe they ran out of ideas for these new characters way too soon, but either way, I'm glad we got them. It added so much variety. And I think the masks is, like, a great addition to the gameplay because it doesn't feel out of place. I mean, it can be a bit of a gimmick, but something about it with the level design, it just feels right at home, and it feels fresh and new and invigorating. I just had a lot of fun going through these levels, and of course, it's going to kick your ass. I mean, it's Crash Bandicoot. What do you expect? It might be the hardest in the whole series, to be honest. I think the difficulty got a bit too much, though, especially with the penultimate level. And I get it, it's supposed to be the final level, but that last portion of it required such perfect precision. I thought it was a bit too much. And, like, you know, I get it. I get it that they want to be difficult and stay true to what makes Crash Bandicoot great, but even that was, I thought, just a bit too much, man. You could have done something like that for, like, an additional challenge or something, but, again, it's just, I don't know, it got a bit too frustrating, because I could deal with all the other parts, and like, yeah, okay, it's my fault, I effed up, but that moment was just like, oh, come on, man, I have things to do and stuff, I have other places to be, I don't have time for this, you know, but then they're way better players than me, so I just suck royally at Crash Bandicoot. I played the games, like, enough, but not to the point where I'm, like, a pro or anything like that, you know, and thankfully there is the modern mode where you can just keep playing as much as you want, and you can you don't have to worry about lives or stuff like that, although it is important to die less, so if you want to unlock everything you gotta do it that way, so there's still some punishment for playing. But yeah, other than that, I loved it so much. I'm just so glad that Crash is back, and hopefully they'll give the same treatment to Spyro. I don't know how well the game did in sales. I heard it was kind of okay, because I hope Crash does have a bright future after this. I would hope he would, because the game was so damn good, but who knows? We'll just have to wait and see what they do next with the marsupials, so I don't know. Just, yeah, if you want to go back to some old school style Crash Bandicoot, you cannot go wrong with this game. I highly recommend it. I mean, if it's too difficult for you, then, yeah, maybe you might want to look somewhere else, but yeah, there's no reason not to check out this game. It's awesome. Number 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake. I did a whole vlog on this game a while ago, and if you want to know my full thoughts on that, you can check it out there, but I absolutely loved it. I loved every second of it. Like, sure, the ending, I'm still kind of up in the air about it, because, you know, on one hand, it's a remake, so it's okay to go in your own direction, because, like, we know this story, like, so many times. I mean, how many times are we gonna remember the most tragic death in video game history? It's like, oh man, it just makes me sad thinking about it. But, like, I guess at the same time, I can see the problem with it, because you want to see all these famous moments in HD, in 3D, in full 3D, you know? So, I guess I can see where people are coming from on that. But at the same time, I'm interested to see where it goes, you know? But everything about it, I think it's going to leave an even bigger impression than the original Final Fantasy VII, because I think most of the original developers worked on this game, so they kind of wanted to take what didn't work about the original game and just fix it. And the combat is much more refined, because it's a lot more fast-paced now, but they do include elements from that original game that make you stop and give you a chance to think about your next move, which I thought was really good. I thought it was a nice way to implement the ATB from the original games. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And I like, too, how you can just also control the other characters on the fly as well. It was just a really nice touch. It reminded me of Xenoblade Chronicles for that sort of that fast-paced gameplay and just, like, on the go and then choosing what you want to do while you're in the middle of a fight and all that stuff. There's just many different ways to, like, approach a scenario when you're in the middle of a battle in this game. But of course, from a story perspective, I think the story is really good too. I mean, it's the same thing for the most part, but then they include, like, the Arbiters of Fate, and, like, things start taking a different turn and all that stuff. But, I mean, it can get weird, but I think where it shined the most in the story area are the characters, because I feel like they're so much more refined compared to the original, and they have such a bigger personality this time around. I think what helps too is, of course, the cutscenes and the voice acting, which is all really good. I know it's weird that for some reason they decided to get rid of the original English voice cast and replace them with new ones, which I thought was weird, because in Japan it's still the same, I believe. So, I don't know, it was a weird choice, but the new voice actors, they do their part just well. But yeah, especially with the characters, because you feel like you have a bigger connection to them. And I mean, I think that might be a problem too, because the whole part 1 of the game is up until the end of Midgar. So there was a lot of filler going on there, but they also take a lot more time with the characters to sort of get to know them better and to see just like the struggles they're going through in sort of this world taken over by Shinra and all that stuff. But yeah, I still really like the characters and stuff. They're just, again, a lot more refined, and like you really connect with them. Like, you know, Aerith I liked in the original game just fine, but here she's just a lot more spunky. She's strong-willed, and you just want to follow her and hope that this time around she doesn't die, you know. And like even Cloud, like he can be, you know, in like a lot of later media with him, they sort of portray him as like this brooding, tough guy and all that stuff. But here he's just kind of done with everyone's shit, which I really like. He's just like, you know, I just want to get to my next job. I want to do my stuff. I just don't have time to deal with anyone's crap, which I think is hilarious because there are legitimately funny moments in this game too. And one thing I forgot to mention in the vlog was the Honeybee Inn and the dance scene. It's, oh my god, it's the most amazing thing you will ever see in your life. I think what sells it is Cloud just, he has a straight face the whole time he's doing his dance move, so he's like, and it's just, it's the funniest thing ever, but it's just so amazing to watch. I had so much fun. It was great. Although Aerith, she got a little too into it. It's like in the, what was it, in Harry Met Sal, where it's like, I want what she's having. So it's like, I don't know, she's getting a little, enjoying it a little bit too much. I wouldn't expect if she just started throwing money out. It's like, let's make it rain, Cloud, yeah. But yeah, the gameplay is very tight. I think a lot of the characters are great. They do such a good job with the cutscenes in it. I just loved it to death. Again, I feel like it goes on a bit too long. There was definitely some fat you could have cut off of it, but I don't know. It was just really good, and I'm looking forward to part 2 and seeing the new direction they're going in. Still not sure what to say about that ending, but I just had so much fun, and it sort of reunited my interest in the Final Fantasy VII, because again, I like the original just fine, but it has not aged well, and hopefully this one will leave a bigger impact, in my opinion at least. I know there's some Final Fantasy VII purists out there who think the game should be as is, but you know, sometimes it's okay to evolve, and sometimes it's okay to try new ideas. I really think you should give this game a shot and sort of judge it before you know, coming to a rash conclusion, you know? But yeah, Final Fantasy VII is awesome. If you have a lot of time to spare, then give it a playthrough. And the #1 game of the year is Fast and Furious. Oh yeah. I mean, how could it not be, with its message of family just really resonating with me, and Vin Diesel giving a performance like he doesn't give a crap, and the numerous amount of glitches? It's Doom Eternal. #1 is Doom Eternal. You all saw this coming. It's no surprise. Doom Eternal, wow, it just propelled the Doom series to a whole new level. Just with the way it approaches each monster battle in it, because you have to be like aware of what's going on, and you have to look at it as like a combat puzzle and figure out how you're supposed to overcome everything, and then just shooting the monster's weaknesses and using your supplies at the right moment, like the chainsaw to get ammo, or the fire belch to restock on armor or stuff, or a glory kill to get more health. I just think it's really intuitive with the way it works and stuff like that. It's just an overall fun game. It's not trying to be uber serious. That's the thing. People can't get into it because it's not serious enough for them. It's not like an award-winning story. That's the thing too. It's like, if you don't like the game, that's perfectly fine, but don't dislike the game because of what it is. It's trying to be silly. It's trying to be goofy. It's over the top. I mean, the story is ridiculous. I mean, there's one point where you have to shoot a hole in Mars or something, and then also with the reveal of the Doomslayer being the original Doom guy, he goes, guts, huge guts, rip and tear, kill them all. I mean, it's supposed to be dumb. That's just the whole point of it, and people are not, they feel like every game has to be like an emotional roller coaster. It has to be like, every game has to be immersive, and there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes once in a while you want to just relive the glory days of old school video games, where you just want to get in there and just have fun, you know? Because people, like, they're nitpicking the craziest things, like, Okay, why are there like monkey bars everywhere? I don't know. Why are there giant question blocks floating around in the Mushroom Kingdom? Or why does a super fast blue hedgehog need rings to stay alive? See, that's the thing. It's trying to be a video game. It's like, again, not everything has to be this uber realistic immersive experience. It's okay just to have fun once in a while. That's where Doom Eternal excels. Like, it's a lot of fun. And I thought the lore in it was pretty good too. But again, the main story is where it's very goofy, it's very cheesy, and I absolutely love it. It's just fun to experience. And that's where I think a lot of people, again, because like every video game, it just needs to like, I don't want to say it's break new mold, because I don't know if Doom Eternal necessarily breaks new mold, like it does in certain moments, but you can look back to other games it takes its inspiration from. Even something like Serious Sam in a certain way. You don't have like hordes and hordes of enemies coming at you, but you kind of have to be aware of which guns you're using and which work best on certain demons and all that stuff and their weak points and stuff like that. But yeah, still, it doesn't have to be anything crazy like that. It can just be a fun, simple shooting game. I mean, what more do you need, right? But again, it just takes what started with the original game and just improved upon it greatly, which is why it's my second favorite game now. I just think it's the quintessential first-person shooter now. It just does so many things right. It just combines all the old school elements of shooters from yesteryear with a lot of the modern conventions, and it just molds it into something that's just really incredible. And just of course the soundtrack by Mick Gordon is awesome. Now, of course, with the Ancient Gods, we did get, I forget who one of the composers is, but I know the other one is Andrew Hulshult, and they do a good job for the most part. But I don't know, Mick Gordon was kind of like a visionary. He was an artiste. Like, he kind of had this really unique style to him that barely few could imitate. And like, again, no disrespect to the other guys, but it's just like, wow, the soundtrack is just incredible. It just adds to the whole mood of the game, just the fast-paced nature of it all. And yeah, I mean, I could praise the game all day and say what works about it and just how every aspect, it just feels it's in place. And some people just like don't like it like that, especially with the shortened ammo for some reason. It's like, hey, you have a chainsaw, use it. There you go, you have more ammo again. Or just shoot one of the Maker drones, boom, you have more ammo again. It's not that difficult. It's just it's a rhythm you have to get into, and once you're able to find it, it just becomes exhilarating, and it's just fun from start to finish. And are there problems with the game? Sure. The blood punch you use, it doesn't always work properly, and sometimes the grenades don't falter an enemy as well. I mean, there are a few of the core mechanics that need to be refined so that it feels a lot better, because sometimes, like, especially again with the blood punch, it doesn't react always, and that could easily ruin your run, especially if you're doing it in Ultra Nightmare. And there are a tad few glitches that, nothing big, they've been corrected for the most part, but they could still use some touch-up. Like, there is also a tiny frame rate issue when, like, you're against walls where it feels inconsistent, which that's something I hope they address. And, of course, the boss fights, they're not nearly as, like, good as Doom 2016's. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because the inclusion of fodder enemies and all that stuff, and you kind of have to juggle all that. It doesn't feel like a very personal, like, intimate moment where you're in the midst of this big battle against the boss. And even the final boss, the Icon of Sin, it's nice that they finally gave him a modern interpretation instead of, just being a freaking wall. But even then, that fight goes on for far too long, in my opinion. It just, I don't know, because you have to go through 2 phases. You got to take off all his armor, and then you have to deal with all these other enemies going on screen. It's just, it just went on too long, in my opinion. But everything else I loved, and it's just a celebration of everything we love with first-person shooters, and it just knocked it out of the park for me. And I was kind of worried too, because something this like unique would turn off some people, and I mean, yeah, I can see why, especially with the difficulty, because it can get really brutal, like even on the easier settings. But you swallow your pride. It's okay to start on the lower difficulty settings, because if you start off the gate like on Ultra Violence or something, you're gonna get your ass kicked. You need time to understand the mechanics. I mean, there are a few who can like do it flawlessly, like Zero Master, of course. He's got that down to an art form, so he's like nothing gets past him. He could probably just played it on Ultra Nightmare right away and beat it without even breaking a sweat. I mean, Zero Master can do no wrong. Knock on wood. Let's hope that, because I know a few speed running scandals have come to light, none which I will repeat here, but you know what they are. But yeah, Doom Eternal, to me, it really just heightened everything and just took Doom in a whole other direction, and I really can't wait to see where it goes next. And oh yeah, I probably should mention the battle mode. It's okay. It's fine. It's not really my thing. It seemed to be mixed for those who are big on the multiplayer scene, and like, yeah, I guess I could see both sides. I could see how it can be exhilarating, but I could also see how it can be frustrating too. But it's not my thing. The main focus is the campaign, and just, wow, I could go on forever talking about how good it is. I do want to do a Let's Play of it eventually, but I want to wait for Ancient Gods Part 2 to come out and the whole game to be finished. And besides, I still have to finish up Doom 2016 anyway, and probably put out something that isn't Doom related. Even though Doom Eternal is my favorite Doom now, it can never compete with just the incredible modding scene going on with Doom, because they just come up with these really amazing high concept stuff that you couldn't dream to see in a Doom game, and they're just wonderful, and there's just so many different ones to choose one. I mean, after playing all the main Doom games, you should really go out and experience all the incredible mods that people have put out. They just go up and beyond, man, and nothing will ever compete with the incredible drive and passion that the Doom community has. It's just extraordinary, and I feel it's never going to die. No matter what, they're just going to keep going and just go on to do incredible things. And because of Doom, some of these modders have actually become full-time game developers, which is really awesome and really, really inspirational. I mean, even Andrew Holschultz, he started out doing covers for the original Doom, and now he was working on the soundtrack for Doom Eternal. It's just amazing stuff. And again, why this franchise isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, say what you will about Doom Eternal and all that stuff, I just absolutely loved it, and I know it's gonna keep this franchise going for years to come. Yeah, and that's gonna do it for my list of 2020. What were your guys' favorite games of the year? Definitely let me know in the comments. I know 2020 wasn't the best year, but hopefully we're going to be able to move on from that, get through this pandemic, and life will go back to normal. I don't know if we'll ever go back to normal, because, yeah, we've had to deal with some stuff, and that some of it's going to stay with us, but as long as we keep that positivity with us, then hopefully we'll have a brighter future, you know? So here's to a new year, and thanks for watching.